Hey guys, what's going on? James here, and in this video today, we're going to be reviewing the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 27-17 loss in preseason week number 1 versus the Pittsburgh Steelers. I am not alone in this review today. Joining me is Mr. Evan Wanish. Evan, Bucs football is back, and there was definitely some good and definitely some bad regarding this preseason game. Is that correct?
Yeah, I would say it was definitely a mixed bag. You had a lot of things, positive things that you saw, but also as we're going to get into, and we'll get into the positives as well. But we're going to get into, there's a lot of things that, even though it is the first preseason game, and there is still a lot of football to be played. You got to remember this is a lot of guys' first game, football game in months, so there is still things to be concerned about, though. So we'll get into all that today.
Yeah, and we're just going to go straight down the line, right? Let's not waste any time. Let's get right into it, right? Quarterbacks is the first thing we're going to talk about, Evan. And look, folks, to be honest, we're going to be talking about this probably in a video tomorrow as well. Like, this is going to be a topic that we're going to be discussing for the next month, basically, and probably even further beyond. Stat-wise, Evan, John Wolford, 10 of 17, 111 yards, 1 touchdown, no pick, sacked 1 time. Kyle Trask, 6 of 10, 99 yards, no touchdowns, 1 pick, sacked 3 times. Baker Mayfield, 8 of 9, 63 yards, 1 touchdown, no picks, and not sacked at all. Your thoughts on the quarterbacks briefly?
Yeah, obviously, there was a lot of, I think most of the hype was coming from seeing the quarterbacks here and Baker Mayfield starting out with, which it was something that was called the ones. Really wasn't the first team offense, though. Obviously,
No.
you didn't have guys like Mike Evans, Chris Godwin, Tristan Wirfs, Ryan Jensen. You know, a guy like Matt Filer. He wasn't even out there. So
Right.
you had sort of a makeshift starter offensive line. Russell Gage, I believe, wasn't listed on the players inactive, but I don't think he played.
No.
So you didn't even really have that many receiving options either. Rashad White wasn't there. So the expectations for Baker Mayfield, I sort of tempered them. However, Mayfield looked pretty good. He made some early throws. Of course, the Bucs, their first offensive series, they ran the ball 3 straight times. Then we're gonna run it on 4th and 1 before a false start forced them to punt. So couldn't get a look at Mayfield right there, but made a couple of nice throws. The one throw to Trey Palmer, obviously in the end zone for the touchdown, was a really nice throw, and he looked pretty good. Now Kyle Trask, it's a tough evaluation because you look at the numbers and you see the one interception, and that's what a lot of people are going to harp on. I will say I don't think Trask was nearly as good as Mayfield was today. That's pretty clear. But I also want to give him the benefit of the doubt because when you look at the offensive line that he was playing with, and what's funny is it was really the same right side of the offensive line, and we'll get into that right side of the offensive line in today's video and the future video. But
Yeah.
it wasn't very good. There was constant pressure in his face, and when there's constant pressure, quarterback doesn't really have a chance. As for John Wolford, late in the game, Steelers are playing their backups. They got into a little bit of a rhythm late and looked fairly good. But yeah, I mean, I would say Baker Mayfield definitely took the upper hand in the quarterback competition right now.
Yeah, I think obviously you look at the stat, it says 3 sacks for Kyle Trask, no sacks for Baker Mayfield. They were rolling Baker out a lot, on bootlegs and whatnot, which I thought the Baker did a really good job with that. Of course, he only had 1 incompletion, had a really nice touchdown pass to Trey Palmer. We'll talk about him in a little bit as well. The interception for Kyle Trask, I know people are going to really dig at that. And to be fair, wasn't a great look from Kyle Trask. Great play by the cornerback. I do want to say that from the Steelers. He jumped the route and just got a really nice interception where, it looked like there may have been a little bit of a pocket in the zone that the Steelers were playing, but maybe Trask was just a little bit too late on the throw, something along those lines. But, again, look, Trask wasn't terrible in this game per se, especially whenever you consider some of the circumstances around him. But Baker Mayfield, like you said, Evan, I think took a big step up regarding his overall play today and possibly even this quarterback battle. But we'll probably get into that in a video tomorrow as well. John Wolford, that looked pretty decent, man. 111 yards, touchdown. Thought he ran around pretty well. Had some good, pocket presence and whatnot. Was dealing a little bit to some guys. All in all, I thought the quarterbacks overall looked pretty decent today, all things considered, Evan. Moving on to the running backs now. It was not really a lot going on here, man. Not really a lot going on at all. Like Chase Edmonds averaged 3 yards a carry, only had 6 carries. Sean Tucker, 6 carries, 10 yards. And we'll get to him in a minute. You also had guys like Patrick Laird, 2 carries. Keyshawn Vaughn, 7 carries, 4 yards. One thing that I thought was kind of interesting was you did have a couple of end arounds, right? Which I thought was kind of fun. Tay Barber had a 13-yard end around. Kalen Geiger had I think it was like a 2-yard end around or something along those lines. Devin Tompkins had an 8-yard end around. Thoughts on the running game, Evan?
Yeah, it's tough to gauge, especially when you're shuffling in and out offensive linemen. It is tough to gauge, but yeah, we you mentioned Sean Tucker there. Obviously, for those that just look at the box score, didn't watch the game, they're gonna look and say, didn't really do much. He did have a touchdown. It was called back on a penalty, which we'll get into the penalties in a little bit here.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's tough to evaluate the run game. It's clear that the Bucs wanted to establish the run game early. I mean, like I said, I mentioned the 4 straight runs to start the game pretty much, and wanted to give their backs a chance. It's just nothing doing, honestly. The Steelers really made life difficult for the Bucs running backs and the Bucs offensive line tonight.
Yeah, and I will say too, like Chase Edmonds, he did have a couple of good moments that, unfortunately got taken away with penalties and whatnot, but he did give up a sack on Kyle Trask, just got completely blown up by a linebacker or something like that. That was a tough situation. Again, not much going on from the running game in this one, folks. It was what it was, just kind of lackluster, all things considered, but a lot of that can also be chalked up to just rotating offensive linemen and just overall not great efficiency from them. Wide receiver, in terms of receiving stuff, Evan. Some interesting things here. David Moore had 3 receptions for 66 yards. Kalen Geiger, 4 receptions for 50 yards. Trey Palmer had a touchdown, which I thought was pretty cool. Payne Durham had his first ever NFL touchdown. Congratulations to him. Overall, receiving wise, anybody else that kind of stood out to you besides the guys that were just mentioned here?
Well, I did want to mention Devin Tompkins because he was one of the guys that when Mayfield was in, if it wasn't Trey Palmer, it was Devin Tompkins a lot of times, and they tried a couple of interesting quick passes with Tompkins, tried to get him into space a little bit and let him do his thing. So I just wanted to mention Devin Tompkins there. Other than that, not really anybody that stood out big time. David Moore had that one really nice play, caught the ball from Trask, made a couple of moves, and got upfield. Unfortunately, got flagged for a face mask, but still counts as a first down and everything. And I thought Trey Palmer was easily the most impressive wide receiver tonight. I mean, the catch in the back of the end zone was really good, and it's an encouraging start from him right now.
Yeah, for sure. Kalen Geiger did have a fumble at the very, very end of the game on a punt return, I believe, something like that. So,
Yeah,
but
and well,
is
one
what it
thing I
is.
did want to note about the receivers is that Raheem Jarrett, the undrafted free agent out of Maryland, who I was pretty excited to see, was one of the inactive players. So I'm not sure if there's an injury there. Obviously, I don't think his spot on the team is guaranteed. So I'm not sure if there's an injury or not, but just something to monitor that he was probably expected to play and ended up not playing at all.
Yeah, very interesting there as well. Kind of finally to put a bow on the offense, and then we'll quickly move over to the defense. Offensive line, Evan, not good. Not good. Essentially, after Baker had gotten taken out, even whenever Baker was in there, it didn't look necessarily great, but man, oh man, whenever Trask was in there, it was notable. We're going to be having a whole separate video talking about the right side of the offensive line with Luke Gedeke and whatnot, but just to kind of briefly talk about it here, Evan, O-line didn't look great tonight.
No, and it's not an encouraging start, and especially a lot of people, the skeptics of Luke Gedeke or a skeptic of drafting a guy Cody Mock and turning him into a right guard. They were proven right tonight. And I will say it is early.
It's preseason
It's
too.
the yes, it is. It is the preseason. However, I mean that they were. It was weird because you mentioned Baker Mayfield 0 sacks, right? And you also mentioned yes, they did roll out Baker a little bit more. There's a lot more quick passes I think with Baker Mayfield as well, getting the ball to guys like Chase Edmonds and Devin Tompkins, but it seemed like Luke Gedeke and Cody Mauk kind of wore down as the game went on. And maybe, that's fatigue. I mean, they're human after all. It's hot out there, it's humid, but like you've been practicing in this for how long? And Gedeke, you were here last year. Like that shouldn't be. You should be able to manage that. So, yeah, offensive line early returns on the offensive, especially the right side, because the left side, the Bucs starting left side didn't really play. But the starting right side of the offensive line has to be better, or else this offense is going to have trouble scoring any sort of points this season.
I agree 100%, man. It'll be interesting to see if this continues. Like I said, we'll be having some other videos kind of diving more in depth on those topics, Evan. So everybody stay tuned for that as well. Moving over to the defensive side of things, folks, we're kind of really just going to go big gloss over this in some ways. So Will Golston led the way with 5 tackles. He had a tackle for loss and a quarterback hit. I thought Will Golston looked good today in terms of pass rushing. Nolan Turner was brought in on a safety blitz, got a QB hit. Marquise Watts actually put in some work today. 2 quarterback hits, 1 sack that also got a forced fumble. So shout out to him for that. Cam Gill got a sack and a half, a tackle for loss, and 2 quarterback hits. Mike Green got a half sack and 2 quarterback hits. Evan, thoughts on not just really, I guess, the pass rush, but also any type of tacklers that may have kind of jumped off the page to you before we kind of maybe talk about the secondary for a minute? Also, another guy I thought, played overall decently well and made a couple of plays was KJ Britt.
Yeah, KJ Britt made a few plays. Before he left the game, I thought Yaya Diaby, the rookie, flashed a little bit to me. Didn't come up with any sacks or anything, but you can just tell
Aggressive.
he's yeah,
He was
yeah,
jaw
just
jacking with
like
some guys too.
yeah, it's just he's like a bull in a china shop, man. He's when he goes out there, he's ready to go. So hopefully it's nothing serious. We don't know anything right now. Hopefully it's nothing serious. They'll be able to be out there at practice that when they play the Jets and but yeah, I mean I thought Diaby definitely played well, and he's a guy where the Buccaneers are gonna maybe have to have him step up because who knows, how Shaq Barrett's gonna be. Joe Tryon-Shoyinka still trying to prove himself. So if Yaya Diaby can come in and sort of be like a spark plug for this pass rush, I think it'd be a very good thing.
Now to the secondary, that was a very interesting one there, Evan. Some guys struggled in some ways. And I do want to say, hey, shout out to J.J. Russell. He had an interception. That's cool for the young middle linebacker. Zon McCollum also had an interception. Shout out to him.
It was a great interception by McCollum as well.
Very good coverage. Got himself a very good interception there. Great coverage. Ball got tipped up. He got the interception. Great play overall, right? Like a very textbook cornerback play, right? However, the secondary, after that really good moment, I thought struggled in some ways throughout this game, right? Nolan Turner did get a quarterback hit on a blitz, but then got kind of juked out of his shoes, I think, on a Pickens touchdown, something like that. Guys were just arm tackling in terms of secondary members. Believe Derek Pitts Jr. got burned for a touchdown, Evan. What were your thoughts on the secondary tonight? Because for me, especially in terms of overall maybe cornerback depth, was a little concerning.
Yeah, I sort of explained to you my thoughts before we came on. I think if Carlton Davis or Jamel Dean have to miss time, the Buccaneers may be in trouble. And this is something we've talked about all training camp or all off season. The lack of experience that the Buccaneers have behind those guys, behind Carlton Davis, behind Jamel Dean, the lack of experience that they have there, it could hurt them. It's really boom or bust. And tonight it was a bust. Zion McCollum makes the great play on the interception. He was the guy in coverage on that George Pickens touchdown, the first one that Kenny Pickett threw. It's a great throw. I mean, McCollum really couldn't have played it any better. So I will give him a little bit of slack there. But the second touchdown the Steelers scored, he takes a completely wrong angle, gets sucked in, and they score an easy touchdown. You can't do that. You got to be better in run support. And a guy like Derek Pitts, like it wasn't good. And this was a guy who had flashed at practice recently, and he got completely burned. I think it was a 67-yard touchdown. So even a guy like Kean Isaac, who I have sung the praises of, missed a few tackles, got blown up in coverage a few times. So it was definitely a learning experience for those guys, and hopefully it's just a one-time thing and they're able to bounce back from it. But again, just like the offensive line, the early results of this secondary depth, the young and inexperienced secondary depth, is not very good.
Yeah, and I will say too, like D Delaney wasn't out there too much. I think he did get a couple of tackles. He's probably your top depth cornerback at this point, right, Evan? Like, besides Zion McCollum, he's just
Probably, yeah.
because you have a lot of young guys out there right now. So it was good that they got reps, but definitely a learning experience there. Maybe a missed opportunity for some of those guys as well. Just to finish it off, and then we're going to close out. Special teams. Chase McLaughlin. He only did 2 extra points, got both of them. Rodrigo Blankenship made his only field goal, so the kicker is kind of tied there in that situation in my mind. Jake Camarda, 6 punts, 1 touchback, 3 inside the 20, 61-yard longest punt of the night, Evan. I thought special teams did fine tonight. What did you think?
Yeah, it was fine. And obviously, the curious thing is Chase McLaughlin had the first field extra point. Then Rodrigo Blankenship had the 35-yard field goal, and then Chase McLaughlin had the last touchdown. Now, what I also found interesting was after the Buccaneers' last score, after the Blankenship field goal, they had McLaughlin do the kickoff. So that made me wonder, are they looking if McLaughlin can do that? Like, and maybe that can save Camarda's leg a little bit from time to time. Like, will that potentially just be another thing that McLaughlin has over Blankenship? Is the knock on Blankenship that McLaughlin doesn't have an issue with is the leg. McLaughlin has a stronger leg, so is that something the Buccaneers were looking at? Just something to keep in mind. But yeah, I kicker battle. I mean, it's been an underrated thing, I think, an under talked about thing, just because, which is weird because in Tampa Bay, it used to every training camp used to just be talk about the kicker battle. But I think the quarterback battle has really shadowed that. But yeah, but both guys did good. I thought, yeah, special teams did fine.
Yeah, and then also one final interesting note for me was that Trey Palmer got a couple of opportunities at kick returner. I thought he looked a little bit better than Devin Tompkins. Just something to note there.
Yes.
If Devin Tompkins is a guy that, is battling for a roster spot, and a lot of people may have already assumed, like, well, he's going to be the returner, might not be the case if Trey Palmer is outperforming him. So, just an interesting thing to note there. But folks, listen, preseason week 1's done. We're going to be having a lot of content coming out this week with different types of videos and things like that, with some more in-depth takeaways and maybe some things to pay attention to, not just for the remainder of the preseason, but also possibly the regular season as well. And it can include a lot of different things: quarterbacks, maybe potential additions, the offensive line, a lot of stuff to talk about, folks. So stay tuned this week.
There is one more thing though.
Okay.
And we have to talk about it really quick.
Oh, that's right.
A lot of penalties tonight.
Yes.
A lot of penalties tonight from the Buccaneers. 12 penalties for 127 yards. Todd Bowles is not going to be happy with that.
No, and on one hand, there was some starters who had some penalties. Cody Mock had some, or Luke Gedeke had one. David Moore had one. But also a lot of it was from younger guys, guys who might not even make the team, folks, to be completely transparent with you. But again, not great for a team to have 12 penalties for 120 yards, something like that. And it is going to be something definitely worth noting and paying attention to as well. So, folks, stay tuned for everything again regarding the Bucs for this upcoming week. It's some more in-depth takeaways from this preseason game and just some more insight as well. Evan, thank you so much for joining this video. Obviously, you guys know Evan's part of this channel, and he's been putting out some phenomenal work here, so stay tuned for more content throughout this week. But folks, thank you guys so much for watching. Hope y'all enjoyed. As always, we will see you all in the next video or the next live stream. But until then, and as always, guys, goodbye for now, and go Bucs.